Episode 249 of the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. Learning from your mistakes, that's huge. Let's start the show.
We are now the defenders of the stronghold of democracy and of equal opportunity.
You and I, as citizens, have the obligation to shape the debates of our time, not only with the votes we cast, but with the voices we lift.
The people are looking for honest answers, not easy answers.
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Clear leadership.
And we are, as a people,
not false claims and evasiveness and politics as usual.
Opposed to secret society.
But ours was a nation of the ballot, not the bullet.
And a secret proceedings.
As a people, we cannot afford to let any group of citizens or any individual citizen live or labor under conditions which are injurious to the common welfare.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Welcome to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. I am your host, Chris Hahn. Thank you for liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, telling your friends about the podcast. Great show today. Lots to talk about, lots coming up. I got Anthony Scaramucci joining me in a little while to talk about his new book, From Wall Street to the White House and Back. And of course, I got to tell you, every single day, I look forward more and more to the debates. I don't know about you, but I think they're going to be decisive. And, you know, the first debate is going to put it very clear to voters that this is the choice. Donald Trump and his chaos, or Joe Biden and his aging, right? Look, I mean, everybody's like, Chris, don't talk about how Joe Biden's old. Well, Joe Biden is old, right? It beats the alternative. The alternative would be a lot worse than just getting old. By the way, I think Joe Biden, for his age, looks tremendous, has tremendous energy. And I don't think that the countless right-wing media outlets, including some that are on the fringes of the mainstream, editing video to make it look like Joe Biden's a doddering old man who doesn't know where he is helpful to Donald Trump, particularly given the fact that there is a debate less than 10 days away from now. Because when there's a debate and he doesn't show up as a doddering old man, and he doesn't freeze in the camera for 10 minutes the way they try to make you think he does now, he's going to win the debate. Now, you might be saying, Chris, well, what if Donald Trump comes in as a statesman and has a deep understanding or exhibits a deep understanding of policy? The way Joe Biden does at debates, by the way. The way Joe Biden does when he talks and people ask him questions about things. Well, that would be good for Donald Trump too, right? I mean, I got to play it both ways. While the bar for Joe Biden is tremendously low, the bar for how he speaks, not the bar for what he says. The bar for what he says is probably high, but the bar for what how he speaks is very low. The bar for what Donald Trump knows is also very low. You would think that a guy who'd been president for 4 years and has been running for president pretty much ever since, basically has been running for president since 2015, so 9 years now. The man has been on the campaign trail or has been president. You would think he would have picked up, just by osmosis, a little bit of policy chops on something other than, I was going to say building walls, but he didn't even do that right. But he hasn't. But the bar is low for him. he can easily step over that bar and, show people that he has some policy chops. Now, I'm telling you right now, America, he will not step over that bar. He will not come to this debate prepared with, deep knowledge of policy issues impacting America. He will come with sound bites on foreign policy, like we're going to shut down the border, we're going to expel people from the country. He won't tell you how he's going to do that. Like, this is the thing, and I hope the moderators, get past the platitudes with both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Don't just, this is just two guys. There is no crowd. Here's an opportunity to say, okay, how? How will you do that? Tell me how you're going to do it. Because, again, we've seen polls, right? We've seen polls where 60% of Americans believe that people who are here illegally should be expelled from the country. Now, when you start rounding up millions of people and marching them across the border, and by the way, paying to do that, which is going to be, I would say billions of dollars, is, if you assume they're going to deport 11 million people, just assume it's going to cost billions of dollars. When you start actually practically doing it, nobody's going to like it. It'll be like 23%. Trump's, diehard MAGA base, like the super MAGA, not just MAGA, super MAGA, which is a scary thought, right? That's who will support rounding people up and sending them home. People who are xenophobic, if not racist, when you're actually rounding them up. But you say, oh, people broke the law. Should they be here? No. I'm surprised the number's only 60%. So the question is how? So when Donald Trump gives you a 10-second answer to something that's a very deep topic and it's all platitudes, tell me how. Tell me how you'll do it. What is your plan? He has no plan, right? That's why the Republican Party that did not have a platform 4 years ago, because he didn't know what he wanted the platform to say. Listen to this. We'll be right back with the Mooch. Great friend of the show, Anthony Scaramucci, hasn't been on in a while. He's back. He's got a book out. It's called From Wall Street to the White House and Back, and he's joining me now via phone. Anthony, how you doing?
Hey, it's great to be on. Of course, I love Billy Joel. You got great theme music, my friend.
I actually met Mike Del Giudice. Well, it wasn't the first time I met Mike Del Giudice. I used to see him when he used to be in a band called Big Shot. Mike Del Giudice is one of Billy Joel's band guys who actually does a lot of the singing at the concerts. I met him on Friday out in Southampton. I was at a charity event, a golf event, and I had the pleasure of meeting Mike Del Giudice, which was kind of cool. Probably not too far from your house out there in Southampton. I know you got a place out there.
I like you. I have all my real estate is here on Long Island. Okay, just tells you how much I love Long Island. I'm never leaving. I'm not one of those snowbirds or anything like that. This is my jam.
I agree, man. Me too. I love Long Island. I hate when I even have to go. Like, my parents live in Florida now, Anthony. I got to go down there. It drives me nuts, especially when I got to go down there in the summer because I forgot to go down in the winter, and now they're all over me. So I got to go down sometime in July, which is going to be fun.
Perfect weather for Florida.
So I read a lot of your book, and I really enjoyed it. And the theme to me that caught my attention, and I want you to go into this, is redemption, is learning from your mistakes, owning your mistakes, and learning and growing from them. Tell me about that theme and how you came to it.
Well, we say that America has this entrepreneur's culture, and we embrace failure and so on and so forth. But in reality, it's a very small percentage of the population that embraces failure. Most people are very self-conscious about it. Most people are very worked up and won't take a risk, or they won't leap out of their comfort zone because they're afraid something will go wrong, and then if it goes wrong, it's sort of a calamity for them, Chris. And so I just try to write about lots of different things that have gone wrong in my career. Obviously, the very famous firing from the Trump White House after 11 days. But in general, I've had a phenomenal career because I've taken a lot of risk. But when you're high profile like you or me and something bad happens, you end up getting written about. You end up getting in the paper. It could be a political obituary. It could be a financial obituary. And so for me, I just wanted to put it down in a book and hopefully someone could pick it up and read it and then potentially see themselves in it and make themselves feel better about where they're going.
I felt very good about it because honestly, I feel that's been my way in my career. I've had days like you. I mean, look, it wasn't national news, but it was very local news. People just coming up to me saying, "Are you okay? Are you going to be okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, this isn't the first. I mean, I played baseball. I used to strike out, 4 times a game. Maybe not 4 times, 2 times a game. It happens. You learn from your mistakes. By the way, one of the reasons why I encouraged my kids to play sports growing up is I wanted them to fail. I wanted them to fail at something so that they understood that it's not the end of the world.
No question. Once you get a couple failures under your belt, particularly in sports, I mean, sports is 3 reasons for me: learning how to fail, how to work on a team, how to subordinate yourself to the greater good of the game, and then the last thing is getting back in there, especially when it matters.
Yes.
No matter what happens to you, you got, okay, that happened. Let's go. We got to get back in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big lesson about life. I don't sit around and kick myself, Chris. I'm like, let me wear this millstone of regret. I did a stupid thing in the White House, got myself fired. Let me kick myself in the pants this morning when I wake up. I don't do that. I am rushing out the door, or as Warren Buffett says, I'm tap dancing to work to get the day started and to try to build on whatever it is that I have.
I think you handled it well. I mean, you were there for a couple of days. It must have been a great experience. And by the way, 10 days in the White House is like, 70 days in any other job, just for the record. It's like dog years over there.
Well, so then it was 77 because I was actually
forget about the 11th day. We all forget about it. But I don't know when you start counting. I don't know if you start. I don't know if you start at midnight. No. I don't know like the actual timing.
The official scoring. Let me give you the score. If you start on the 21st and you work a full day on the 31st, count the days. It's actually 11. Even Trump, when he's bashing me on Twitter, he says I was there for 11 days. I sort of feel like the president should be the official scorer.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'll give him that. I won't give him much else, but I will absolutely give him that. But I thought you handled it great. I mean, you left there and you were back on TV like a couple days later.
No problem. It didn't bother me. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I was told by 5 or 6 public relations consultants that I needed to go dark. One even suggested that I move to Europe for 5 years.
What?
And then come back to the United States after 5 years. Oh, I said, that's a good idea.
Yeah. What are you going to do in Europe, man? Where are you going to get a good slice of pizza? I'm glad you didn't move to Europe, because I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. You've been on this show a lot, and I don't have the budget for long distance calling, so it's actually very good that you didn't go there.
Look at the silver lining of the people I met as a result of my White House firing. I mean, I consider you at the top of the list, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, who would have thought? I mean, I remember the first time you and I had lunch, I was like, God, we're an odd couple, and I've got a lot of odd couples in my life. I mean, you and I were on TV with my regular morning TV partner is a guy named Mick Mulvaney, who you worked with for a couple of days.
Yeah, love Mick.
Yeah. And Mick has become one of my better friends. Just because, we hang out when we're in D.C. together. And he's a really cool guy. Great golfer, by the way.
He's a great guy. He just, and by the way, he would have been great at that job with the right executive because he had the right skill set for that job. He understood the House. He understood the mechanisms in the Senate. He was well regarded on both sides of the aisle.
He had a lot of friends in Congress. Yeah,
he did. It's just unfortunate that our boy Donald Trump has no executive management skills, and that's why Mick wasn't able to be as successful at that job as he could have been. Let's put it that way.
Well, here's a guy who could have used to read your book is Donald Trump, right? Because here's a guy who, in his entire life, I guess his father never let him actually fail at anything. He would just take his ball and go home, or he'd pay off the judges or whatever he had to do to make sure Donald Trump succeeded. Like, when his casino was failing, his dad just gave him $3 million or whatever it was to fix it, or $10 million, right?
Exactly.
And I think that is the thing that scares me the most about Donald Trump. It is the fact that he doesn't understand what failure is, and that it's part of life, and it's part of, actually, in politics, it's a big part of life, especially when you're working on issues and things like that. And you have to accept defeat when you lose an election, which the man clearly wasn't able to do. And I have you sent him a signed copy of your book yet?
No, I haven't talked to Trump since Easter Sunday of 2019. There's been a few overtures that the campaign has made to me to see if there could be a rapprochement or some kind of like dialing down of my honesty related to how crazy he is and how damaging he could be if he wins again. And I politely said, no, I'm good. I think it's more important to be a patriot first and a partisan last.
Right.
It's interesting. I don't know where Mick is on this stuff. I don't know if he's with Trump or against Trump, so he's held his cards pretty well.
No, I don't think he's with Trump at all.
Okay.
And I think when Mick...
No better than me.
Well, when Mick does analysis on television, it's kind of like me. We're trying to call balls and strikes about the politics, right?
Yeah.
I don't endorse candidates on TV. I don't endorse anybody. I mean, it might seem like I'm supporting Joe Biden, but I'm not. I'm calling balls and strikes as I see it politically, based on the experience I've had, over a long career now. I mean, I can't believe how old I am. A long career in politics that I've seen a lot. And I'm looking at data, which I'm sure you do on a daily basis too. I look at the data and I say, this is what the data is telling me. And I got to tell you something. The data is telling me that Trump is going to lose. And the data is actually telling me he's going to lose in a bigger way. And there's only one thing that could change that, and that's Biden's health.
Okay, so give me some of that data, okay? Because it'll be a morale boost for me. You're much more objective than me. I'm for Biden the entire way. I'm out there advocating for him. I hit a stiff headwind in some of the social media pockets that are pro-Trump. Obviously, I'm a crypto guy. Trump's pivoted towards crypto, Biden's anti-crypto. That does hurt me in my own industry. But where do you see that data?
So here's what I see. I see that Trump has a ceiling of about 47%, but it is a rough ceiling. I think that there's about 15% of Republicans that are really having a hard time grasping Trump as their nominee again, that they may never come around. It doesn't mean that they're going to vote for Biden. It means that they're just not sure. And a lot of the data that you're seeing still right now, when you see these polls that come out, they're polling registered voters, not likely voters. Pretty soon that changes. When you drill down into these polls and you poll likely voters, those likely voters are going to go with Biden. And these double haters that were also there in 2020 broke heavily for Biden in the end. And I think that that's going to happen again this time. Now, look, there are a lot of factors that could change that. I see this as kind of like the 1980 election in reverse, where it was really tight till October, and then the bottom fell out for Jimmy Carter, and that was it. Some people say, well, no, compared to 84, where it was Reagan, everybody thought he was old, and then he proved that he wasn't too old in the debates, and he moved on. I don't think that's the case here. I think that the debates are going to be good for Biden, but we don't live in the kind of culture where that matters enough. So I don't know. I just see it breaking in the end, in October, not even the very end, like in October, breaking towards Biden. And I think it's going to help us carry the House. I don't know that it saves the Senate, but it's going to help us carry the House.
Well, listen, it's interesting. He's had quite a legislative list of accomplishments, including reshoring a lot of manufacturing, restarting the microprocessor foundries here in the United States. He's, wages are up. He's got the bridges, roads, and tunnels being reformed with the infrastructure bill. So he's done a lot of things to help the people that are supposedly for Trump.
Yes.
I know that the news media is not giving him credit for that.
None of it. They don't give none of them. Not even the progressive media gives him any credit for it.
Yeah, and there's pockets of inflation that have everybody concerned, but the inflation numbers, this is one of the things that I would recommend this to your listeners. Go to truflation.com, truflation.com. And this is like an aggregator of data from around the country. It's almost like a decentralized aggregator.
I like it.
Their numbers are 2.23% as of today. And I'm telling you, that's about 95 basis points below the government's number. And it's also a real-time number. Remember, the government is lagging 2 months.
Yes.
So the numbers are coming down.
How does Truflation get those numbers?
So they literally have gone to retail stores, shopping centers, gas pumps, and they've asked to put a meter. It's almost like it's almost like a Nielsen's rating agency for TV.
Right.
They're just going around the country, and they're asking people for the data. Can they hook something up to their machine? They'll pay them something for it, and the data flows into Truflation. They're giving you the aggregate.
Yeah. People have to feel it, though, and they have to believe it. And my concern is that people don't feel it yet, but the numbers are actually pointing that they're starting to feel it. And if the trend continues through the summer, it's good for Biden. I just look.
Yes.
Again, if he falls on his face at the debate, which I don't think he will, it's a big problem. But barring that, the more people see Trump, the less they want that drama. I mean, you lasted 11 days with the guy, which makes you a saint of a man, because I can't imagine what it was like being there in that White House with that guy all the time. I just don't, complaining and whining. The American people don't want to vote for somebody who's just complaining and whining about their own personal grievance. They want somebody who's going to tell them what they're going to do for you.
No, I'm totally with you on all those things. So we'll have to see what happens. You know, we'll take one day at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say this to you, Chris. If he wins again, is that the end of Trumpism, or does Trumpism manifest itself into a different form?
If he wins again, or if he loses?
No. Joe Biden. Joe Biden wins the election.
If he wins again and Trumpism,
what happens to Trumpism?
I don't think Trumpism exists without Trump, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
There could.
I mean, that's my thought. Curious to get your reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it exists without him, because I just think he's like this once in a generation politician that just attracted a certain type of people. And I don't know that, like a Ted Cruz or JD Vance can do the same thing. It will seem forced. It seems forced when JD Vance is doing it right now. We'll be right back. I'm back with Anthony Scaramucci. He's got a new book out right now. It is called From Wall Street to Washington and Back. I highly recommend you read it. The man's got some wisdom that he's learned through a career, which had a lot of ups and some downs. I think you'd have more ups than downs, but you've had some downs. And I think that's
high-profile ones for sure. I mean, definitely getting fired. I think I was probably the most famous firing from the White House. He had 80 firings, but I think mine was like a pretty big Roman candle blowing up in the sky, no?
Yeah, I think that, look, I mean, it happened so quick, right? It was like you were announced, you were there for a couple of days, and that story came out where the guy basically leaked your off-the-record interview, and then you were gone. And it was
your fellow Long Islander, by the way. I don't like bringing up his name, but his family knew my family here on Long Island for 50 years. But, what are you going to do?
Amazing.
It's the story of the scorpion, right? He bites you. You say, well, geez, why are you biting me? Well, don't forget, I'm a scorpion.
Well, here's what you don't understand. Long Island politics is some of the roughest, politics in the world. So if the guy came up through the Long Island journalistic political system, he was a rough guy. It's
no problem. Look, I'm a big boy. I never complained.
By the way, he did you a favor.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you would have stayed there for a year, it would be worse.
Yeah, no question. And here's the thing, though. I tell people, if you strap on a helmet and play wide receiver in the NFL, you're guaranteed to get a concussion.
Absolutely.
There's not one NFL wide receiver that plays 17 games that can get out of it without a concussion. And that's true about Washington. You can't go to Washington and out getting hit hard from some angle. The weird thing about the Trump stuff, the hits were coming from inside.
Yeah.
You know, the call from terror the call's coming from inside.
The call was coming from inside the White House. It's a blood sport. Politics ain't beanbag. They say it all the time. It is absolutely true. You want a friend in it, go get a dog or get out and do what we do. Talk about it. It's a lot more fun. It pays better. And you don't have to put yourself out there. You just put in your opinion.
They don't hate your family. When you're on the outside, they don't go after your family as hard.
No, not as hard. They go after a little bit now. It's not like when I first started on Fox in 2010 and, people were nice to me when they would see me on the street and we love you on Fox. We don't agree with you. I felt like the sheriff in Blazing Saddles. You would have the good decency to not tell people that I enjoy you on Fox. They'd say to me, but now they sneer at me. They look at me like, what are you doing? It's very, very funny. So you're just talking about this election coming up here, 2024. Yep. You and I were talking about it off the air just a minute ago.
Yep.
J.D. Vance twisting himself into a pretzel to be the president's vice president, right? The vice presidential candidate, which is never going to happen because he gives him nothing. He doesn't need another white guy from Ohio on the ticket. He's going to win Ohio. And nobody's voting for Trump because J.D. Vance is the VP outside of Ohio, and he's got that. So I believe that Nikki Haley is actually the right person because of what we said earlier about, those 15% of Republicans that are still voting against him in primaries, right? I mean, you look at the people who are still like 25% in some states. I mean, he lost 20% of the vote in Indiana. 2 months, 3 months after Nikki Haley had left the race, people just showing up, getting in their cars, voting against him to send a message to the party. So you put somebody like Nikki Haley on the ticket who is, somewhat anti-Trump, very anti-Trump. I think that helps bring some of those people back. I think that's the play for him if she's willing to do it.
Yeah, so couple things. Okay, she says she's voting for him, but and I'm asking you this now with all your years in politics, wouldn't it have been better for her to say, listen, I'm not voting for you. I've got a coalition of 25% of the Republicans, and we're going to extinguish you, and we're going to grow and repot a center-right coalition that's less divisive, less racially charged, less Project 2025.
Right.
I don't know if you and your staff know what that is.
I do.
These guys are talking about a post-constitutional America. And Nikki Haley could have said, look, I'm not for a post-constitutional America.
Right.
I'm not for a liquidation of the checks and balances in the system. It's worked for us for 250 years very successfully, the most prosperous, successful nation in the world. Here's my 25. They're staying with me, and I'm going to regrow this center-right coalition.
Well, I mean,
I'm so surprised that she didn't have the strength to do something like that.
It's very weak. You're right. But again, that 25% is not for her. It's against him. Right.
I understand that, but you could create a platform that they would be for.
That's true.
They don't stand for divisiveness. They don't stand for racially charged hatreds. They don't stand for deporting 15 million people. I could give you the whole list.
She lied twice in that press conference. She lied and said she wasn't endorsing him, but because by saying you're voting for him, you're endorsing him. And she lied when she said she was voting for him because she's not voting for him. It's just, let's be clear. When she's in the polling booth and it's her and God, she's not voting for Donald Trump. I don't know that she's going to vote for Joe Biden, but she's going to leave it blank.
What do I say to my crypto bros, my friend? All my crypto bros are rallying behind Trump, the most transactional person on the planet. All of a sudden, he hated crypto, now he's for it.
Right.
So it's like John Kerry was for the war, now he's against it.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're buying into Trump's nonsense. What do you say to the crypto pros?
You say to them that this guy changes like the weather. And if he thinks he could get traditional Wall Street, traditional finance behind him, he will sell you out in a second.
Amen.
Which is the truth, right? Because he would much rather have the people that his daddy liked support him than these guys who he probably doesn't think much of them anyway.
No No question.
Right? And it would be very easy for him to throw them under the bus after what's been going on in crypto, right? So it's a very easy, I think that's the message to them. This guy is he's going to tee you up and he's going to spit you out. I don't know that he picks Nikki Haley. I think that's probably the smart pick for him. I don't know. You're right. She's a coward. Who else?
I'm going to tell you why he's not going to pick her. And if you're right, we can go back and do a Monday morning quarterback analysis. But he is such a narcissist. He would run the risk that people would say that she carried him over the finish line. And he doesn't want anybody to be able to say that. That was the guy. He always wants to take a deep number two that's going to pay a deep background to him. He doesn't want a co-partner.
Right.
And he doesn't want anybody that could potentially take credit from him. Now, when I say that there's people in the Republican Party, they push back on me and say, no. He wants to win more than anything. And the way to win this thing is to go with Nikki Haley. I'll say something crazy. Okay. The way to win this thing is to go with Bobby Kennedy. I know that sounds probably crazy to you, but Bobby Kennedy has a weird following, and it lines up with a lot of the nonsense and the conspiratorial stuff that Trump represents. And I think he could really galvanize a very large voting bloc if he went with Kennedy. He's not going to go with Kennedy either. So he's going to go with some guy, and it's going to be a guy, and I predict this, it'll be a white guy. Because remember, he hates DEI. He hates identity politics.
Yep.
So it's going to be like a Todd Bergman, the governor from the Dakotas, that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, that guy has his own money, so he could dump some cash into the campaign. And you know how quick. I mean, Donald Trump's raising money hand over fist. At least he says he is. I don't believe the numbers he puts out, by the way.
Yeah, no, me either. No, but I know because, when I worked on the campaign, the numbers that were put out were exaggerated.
Yeah. And you're telling me that he gets convicted and he raises, $30 million from new donors? Why? Why would new donors pick that as the time when it was very clear that a big percentage of Republicans were uneasy about him being a felon? So now, people, I like the cut of his jib. I could see some new, donors based on people who are already MAGA who didn't donate in the past, but I can't see that kind of number. I just can't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, look, I just think, I know the guy, okay? Nobody can get any attention. It's a one-person spotlight.
Right.
Ronald Reagan once said to people, you can get anywhere you want in life as long as you don't care who gets the credit.
Yep.
Donald Trump is, all the credit is on me. If you try to take any credit, you're fired.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump.
Yeah, Doug Bergman would be the perfect guy for him. Of course, he does bring something. He brings money. Right? Like Donald, the person who's the vice president's got to bring something, right? Mike Pence brought something. He was an evangelical who evangelicals trusted. So that was what he brought. Doug Bergman brings his own money. The guy's a billionaire, real billionaire. And
it's a bigger deal that Mike Pence is not supporting him.
I think it's a huge deal. Not just Mike Pence, but all of the people in the, former staffers and cabinet members that are not supporting him. I think that's a huge deal, and I don't understand why that's not talked about all the time.
Why aren't they playing that more, though? Why aren't they making that a bigger deal? I don't know. I can't figure it out.
I think because the media doesn't like Mike Pence. The liberal media doesn't like him, and the conservative media doesn't like him, and I think that's it.
So there you go.
I think you talk to Mike Pence. It's not like Mike Pence is coming out and endorsing Joe Biden either. Like you said it. You're voting for Joe Biden, right?
No, because there's two choices. What I tell Esper, I tell Milley, I tell all these guys, okay, you're not for Trump. I get it. But somebody has to win and somebody has to be president. And if you put you're running the risk by saying you're not going to vote for Biden, that you're creating a potentiality for Trump.
Right.
And this election is too close. Biden is presenting older and Trump is presenting younger than their chronological ages. And trust me, if Biden was 15 years younger, he'd be 20 points ahead. He just would be. He'd be walking circles around Trump right now.
You hear all the talk about, Democrats dumping Biden, right? Every other day there's a story, like an unsourced story about a Democratic staffer wetting their bed about Biden's age. I don't think that there's any way in hell that Biden's not the nominee unless it's health. Right.
He
Right.
has a stroke. He has a couple more Mitch McConnell frozen moments.
Right.
I don't think that's good.
Right. He hasn't had those, though. Right. He's been, he's
had a couple of moves at the podium.
Yes.
Don't look great.
Yes. He's squinting. There are things I don't love, as a guy who, used to, put people on stages to run for office. Right. But I think that if they dumped Biden right now, it would be worse. I don't think it's better. I don't know what your thoughts are on that are.
I think if they dumped Biden with a good story as to why they're dumping Biden, and they put up a Pritzker, or they got Shapiro from Pennsylvania, or it was like a Shapiro-Whitmer ticket.
I love Gretchen Whitmer. She's one of my faves.
Yeah, they would win. They would win. So, okay, it's like you said, the narrative's out there for 72 hours. It's an explosion. It gets digested. And, this is the thing. They could have gone Labor Day of last year. They could have said, hey, Biden's going to throw this to the younger Democrats. He's going to work alongside of them over the next year, and he's not running for re-election. He goes down as an American hero if he does that.
Yeah. Why do you think he didn't do that?
I think it's very hard to give up power, and you're 50 years in Washington. You finally ascend to the president.
And by the way, you're doing a great job too.
He is. His legislative accomplishments have been great. He's just his appearance. This is unfortunately, how this works. This is a popularity contest. It's not a hiring decision for the American people.
Right.
And a lot of it is based on imagery.
Right. Right. It's scary. I think it's going to be an interesting time. I mean, the debate's in 2 weeks. And what are you going to be looking for in that debate?
I think he's going to wipe the floor with Trump, and I think it's going to really upset the Trump people. I just don't know how much it's going to move the needle for Biden. But I would love to see him wipe the floor with Trump because it would lay to rest a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
If I'm Trump, though, I'm saying, okay, Biden at 81, no problem. What about Biden at 83, 84, 85?
Yeah.
Right? And if I'm Biden, I would say, this guy wants to take away your country. He wants to take away your democracy. He's very clear about it. You want this guy driving around town to town in a Handmaid's Tale armored vehicle, removing people from the country? That's what he wants to do. He's talking about 15 million people being forcibly deported from the country.
I had a conversation about this on TV last week about the poll that came out that said 60% of Americans support deporting people here illegally. And I said, I'm surprised the number's that low. It's when you start taking 15 million people out of the country that they're going to get mad, and that number will flip. Right? It'll be more like 30%.
You want a armored car riding up and down the street here on Long Island?
No.
Pulling the people out of the place?
No, of course not.
You can't do it, Chris.
Of course not. I mean, I'm sorry. I think Donald Trump has a few people that are working for him that might be deported in this situation. I think he might be a little worried about them.
The people at his country club.
Right. I mean, I've never been to a country club where I didn't think that was the case. And it's give me a break. These people are here, they're working hard. They want a better life. Look, you and I got vowels in our name. My grandparents are Puchalados, and when they came over here, they called our grandparents WAPs. Why'd they call them WAPs? Because they didn't have papers. Why are we so different? Why don't people see that? I don't understand it.
I don't get it. You got a lot of people that have forgotten that history of it. And also Donald Trump doesn't like them.
No.
You got all these people that all of a sudden they think that they're part of some club that Donald Trump represents. Just let you know, Donald Trump doesn't like you guys.
No, he said it to them. He said it to them last week, right?
Yeah, 100%.
He said, "I don't love you. I just want your vote." He said it at a rally.
And he loves doing that. He loves being that honest with people because this is the true narcissist. He's testing to see if the people will still stay with him despite that narcissistic craziness.
And they all just laugh it off. This is why, by the way, I don't watch his speeches. I only read them because I laugh when I watch him speak. I think it's a comedy show. I gotta read it, Anthony. It's like I'm with you. But what I'm going to do next time he makes one of these crazy speeches where he's talking about deporting people and all this other stuff, I'm going to have an actor read it with a German accent and see how it goes over. I'm going to have somebody dress up like Trump and then read it like he's from Weimar, Germany, and see what happens. You know,
I think it's a good idea. I don't know. I've got to do something to wake some of these people up. But listen, I hope you're right about the data, and I hope you're right about Biden, because I think it would spell the end of Trumpism, and I think that would be good for the country. We need two strong parties in this country, and Trump has weakened that party. The registrations have shrunken.
Yep.
He split the party. You're providing that evidence with the Haley vote versus Trump, and it would be great to move past him. And the only way we're going to do that is if Biden beats him. So I hope that happens.
It's 15 to 25% in primaries that she's long been out. I don't see that vote coming back to him. I just don't. That's just me. Some of it will, but not all of it. And I don't think it's going to go to Biden, but it's not going to matter. If they don't come out for him, they don't come out. All right, Mooch, I'm out of time with you. I'm going to plug the book one more time. I'm going to tell everybody who's listening to this show, you got to go out and buy Anthony Scaramucci's new book. It is called From Wall Street to the White House and Back. It's a great read. Makes a great Father's Day gift for those of you who listen to me before Father's Day. Anything else you want to plug?
That's it, my friend. You're dear to have me on. Always generous to me, and I'm sending you a hug and wishing you happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you too, man, and hopefully I'll get to see you this summer before it gets too cold. Anthony Scaramucci, always great to have you on the show. We'll get you back here real soon, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials. You could reach out to me on any one of them. And, of course, watch me on News Nation. I am on all the time. It's News Nation, not Newsmax. Don't confuse the two. I had a very good friend today confuse News Nation with Newsmax to me. And I was like, you clearly have not been watching me on News Nation. It's news for all Americans. Check it out wherever you get TV. Go to newsnation.com if you don't know how. So, every year these heat waves come. And every year they come earlier. And here we are in June. And while it hasn't fully hit Long Island yet, I know it's hitting other parts of the country. There's the city of Pittsburgh, for example. I know I got a lot of listeners in Pittsburgh. The city of Pittsburgh hasn't had 2 days over 90 degrees in a row in like 10 years. They're forecasted to get 5 days in a row above 95 degrees this week. There's a little town in Maine, which is the most northern town on the East Coast, and they're forecasted to be 99 degrees later this week. I mean, we're talking way up north near Nova Scotia, north of Nova Scotia, probably. Look. We could debate the causes. We could debate the solutions, and I do believe that there are man-made causes and man-made solutions. But we cannot deny anymore that the climate has changed. Winters here on Long Island used to have snow like all the time, and it did snow a little bit this year. A little bit, once. There was like one day where it snows. I have a guy that plows my driveway when it snows. I haven't had to use him in 3 years. Now, it snowed here on Long Island, but by the time he got to my house, it had melted to a point where it was not enough to plow. I told him, don't worry about it. He texts me, he's like, I'm on your way. You're next. I go, don't worry about it. It's clear. I haven't used them in 3 years. That's not even a joke. I'm not making that up. I'm not exaggerating. It snowed once of any significance on Long Island in the last 2.5 years. When I was a kid, it used to snow all the time. We used to miss school for it. We used to miss school. I think they may have had a snow day that day that it snowed significantly, and then, it took them a while to get here. But I went for a run that day on the road. No issues. right? They plowed, but we barely get winter here is what I'm trying to say. We get a lot of rain in the winter now. A lot of bugs on Long Island. They're talking about these giant spiders working their way up the East Coast, and they might make it to New York. They were in Georgia, I guess. I don't know if they accidentally came in on a cargo ship or somebody ordered them because they were into spiders and they got out, and now they're all over the place. And I'm told that we have nothing to fear from these spiders, that they won't attack humans, they won't bite humans. But they are like a foot across, right? So their bodies are like 1.5 inches, and then they have 6-inch legs on each side. Now, look, you want to be a manly man and tell me you're okay with spiders, that's fine. I am not okay with spiders. Especially spiders that are as big as my face. I could just see it now, like running in the morning, and one of these freaking huge spiders has a web across my trail. Like, it's bad enough. I see spiders, and we have wolf spiders here, and they do bite, and they hurt when they bite. And I see the wolf spider, but I know that I'm bigger than the wolf spider, and if I step on the freaking wolf spider, I don't have to worry about the wolf spider if it comes near me. I'm bigger than it. And I get it. I'm bigger than this foot-long spider. But when they're telling me in the paper that it's a foot long, I'm thinking it's going to be 2 feet long. I mean, that's a big freaking spider. And they believe now, because of climate change, that they could survive in New York and that they might make it here this year. That I don't know, what are they doing? They're webbing, they're like Spider-Man, they're webbing their way up the East Coast. I don't know how they're going to get here. I'm just not really excited about it. I'm also not excited about it being 100 degrees on Long Island on Friday. I'm not excited about it being 100 degrees in June on Long Island. Usually we get a 100-degree day late July, August. I mean, Long Island, it's hard to get it to 100 degrees because we are surrounded by water. We're an island. You get the Atlantic Ocean to the south. You got the Long Island Sound to the north. I live pretty close to the Long Island Sound, so it usually doesn't get too hot by me, but I'm told we will not be that fortunate this week. It's going to be hot and humid, and we should expect more of the same all summer. So yes, we've had bad weather before. We've had heat emergencies before. And by the way, heat emergencies are deadly. They are as deadly, if not more deadly, than hurricanes. Heat emergencies are deadly. They cause all sorts of problems. And we've had them before. But forgive me for noticing that we're having them way too often lately. So if you don't believe in climate change, I don't think that's fine. We need to find a solution to these problems before it gets worse, if we even can at this point. It is vital to our survival. All right, I'm going to remind you now, as I always do, to seek the truth. Question everyone and everything, even me. Seek the truth. I know it's out there, and I know you'll find it if you look for it. And I'll be back here again next week to tell you the truth as I see it. I'm Chris Hahn. Thanks for listening to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast.